This program is not for children. If you are under the age of 13, then politely leave. You spoilt little twats. Thank you.
It was a time of great turmoil. Man versus man. Man versus machine. The synthesizers reigned supreme. And movies were never better. It was the 80s. And now, from the secret headquarters of Pop Culture Minefield, Keith and Gary.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Pop Culture Minefield. That's Keith over there.
And that's Mr. Gerry Cassell.
And we're here to talk about some nerdy nerd stuff. And this right now is our 80s series. We're going to be talking about the best sci-fi from each year. And the year we're starting with, of course, is the year 1980. It was the year after 1979.
Which was already a really cool year for
making it
pop
out of
culture
1978,
fans.
Yeah.
well, what I mean is, given everything that had happened,
Alien.
December.
Yeah, Alien came out in 79. Changed my life forever.
Yeah.
Star Wars did.
Yeah.
And but 1980 was a heavy year for some really good science fiction. And I mean, there's a lot of sci-fi. We've already talked about it, Keith and I. But I wanted to limit to the stuff that, one, I actually gave a shit enough to watch and actually enjoyed. The 80s, the greatest impact for me outside of Blade Runner from the 80s was this movie. And of course, we're talking about Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back. The middle film of the Star Wars, the original Star Wars trilogy. Mm-hmm. And what a heavy film. It's heavy because it's dark. It's got romance in it. It does have a little bit of swashbuckling in it, but it's really heavy-hearted. And it's dark, and it's it's got that classic second act feel where what's going to happen next. And directed by George Lucas's one of George Lucas's college professors, Irving Kershner.
Yep.
And George had considered using David Lynch, as I recall. Or was that for Return of the Jedi? I can't remember.
Yeah, Lynch was considered for Return of the Jedi.
Who was the other directors? Do you recall that were thought of for that? Or
not off the top of my head. I remember Lynch because that really stood out. And had Lynch done Return of the Jedi, wow, you would never have forgotten that movie.
Yeah.
Not that
Ewoks would have been horrifying.
Oh my goodness!
But Empire was one of those films that it is my favorite Star Wars film of all time.
Mine too.
And I find many of my friends, it's their favorite. I would say 7 out of 10 is Empire Strikes Back for my friends. And of course, the other 3 are Return of the Jedi. None of my friends list the first film, A New Hope, as their favorite. I found that interesting. But anyway, Empire was this great film. It was the last of the Star Wars films to use stop motion animation. Mm-hmm. And after that, they used Go motion animation from that point forward. Which, if you don't know what that is, well, it's too bad. Maybe you ought to read a book about science fiction and making movies. No, Go motion animation was borrowed from the Japanese rod puppets that they would make. Puppets that looked like real people that had rods that came out of the elbows and hands, and the artist would be below the stage manipulating, and they use shadow to tell their stories. And so they were inspired to do dragons first with Dragon Slayer. That was the first use of Go motion animation by Phil Tippett. And Phil Tippett knocked it out of the park with that movie. Knocked it out of the park. Because you could do something that you couldn't do with stop motion animation. Blur. You could blur the image. Motion blur. Because when you were shooting stop motion animation, it was frame by frame. so there's no motion blur. Whereas with Go Motion, they were moving slowly, and then later they would speed it up, and there would be slight blurring. And they did it, of course, in Return of the Jedi with the Rancor. But Empire used stop motion for the Tauntauns, as well as the AT-AT assault on the Hoth base. And that was it. That was the end of stop motion animation for Star Wars.
Our next film is Superman 2.
Ooh, yeah. Nowhere near as good as the first film.
Yeah.
You could see the budget had been cut a lot on some of the effects. But Christopher Reeve still nails it as Superman in that film. And
everybody's really good. Yeah, everybody's really good. And part of the reason... Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, Dick Lester, the director who stepped in to replace
Richard Donner. Yeah.
I knew it popped into my head. Richard Donner had directed most of the film, but when the producers, Ilya
Salkinds, the Salkinds,
there was a beef between them and Donner, and so he was let go, and all that footage that they shot, some of it had to be reshot because in order for Dick Lester to get full credit as director, he had to shoot, was it 80% of the film, as I recall? Had to be over.
Yeah.
And 20%.
And over 80% of that movie had already been completed. See, Superman 2 should have been out in 1979, and it took longer to get everything done, so the movie came out in 1980. But the whole thing with that movie is the fact that the original version of it was meant to be a direct continuation of the events of the first movie. It wasn't really meant to be a sequel. It was meant to be a continuation so that both the first and second movie, just like The Godfather 1 and 2, you could put those movies together to make one long film. Yep. And because of Richard Lester and the Salkinds, they made changes to the film that basically took it from a continuation into being a sequel, including adding more jokes and humor that wasn't originally a part of the film, and changing the beginning of the movie, altering it from what Richard Donner had to the whole thing about Paris and Lois Lane and all of that makes no sense when you realize what Richard Donner's original version was going to be, which was just to show you what happened with the first missile from the first movie, and how Superman, in using and getting rid of that missile, caused the Phantom Zone villains to be released. That was actually the plot. So, and it's much like what you would get from a lot of the Marvel movies nowadays. But unfortunately, the Salkinds
lost it, and the humor was a lot of it was misplaced.
Yeah,
and I agree with that. I also miss John Williams scoring the film. They lost John Williams because of this dispute. And Ken Thorne, I think was his name, came in to use some of the compositions by Williams, and then he brought in his own scoring based off of Williams' work. But there was that, and the ending, the whole plastic Superman symbol, all that goofy shit that just was weird. Also, they lost Marlon Brando.
Yep.
Because Marlon Brando's, he saw that as an abuse of his trust, and that he did not sign on to do 2 films. He signed on to do 1 film. So they were forced to use footage of Laura.
They brought her back to refilm the scenes that they had originally had
York,
for Jorah.
Right?
Yeah, Susanna York.
And she had to reshoot scenes in place, and that was really odd when we know that Jor-El built this memory bank. So there's but when he released his director's cut of it, it was a much better film. The effects were kind of hacky because he had no budget to do the effects with on some of it, but it was really good to see Marlon Brando back talking to Kal-El, Clark.
Well, it makes the story make more sense. And when you look at a movie like Superman Returns, Bryan Singer's film, that movie makes more sense when you look at Richard Donner's original version of Superman 2. Because then the story becomes a story of fathers and sons. And that's really what Superman, both movies, the ultimate story is about fathers and sons.
I think both of us love this movie, of course, is Flash Gordon track era of the 80s. We had, Queen again for Highlander and Toto for Dune.
Mm-hmm.
Just some really good shit. Battle Beyond the Stars, the movie with a spaceship that had boobs. I know I was 16 and I looked at that and I'm like, Dad, that ship has boobs. And he went, yep, it sure does. That was a fun film.
It's Roger Corman. It's Roger Corman, all-star cast. Look, Roger Corman, the legend goes that he basically looked at Star Wars and said, I can do that and cheaper. And that was what Battle Beyond the Stars was.
It looked like a cheaper Star Wars.
Yes. But you know what? He took a story from what famed Hollywood film?
Oh, I don't know. What was it?
Magnificent Seven.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have to go back and watch it. I have not seen it since 1980. I'm serious. The last time I saw it, I was 16.
George Papard.
Yeah, George Papard is one of the heroes in it. Another film that came out in 1980 that had a huge impact on me, scared the crap out of me too at one point, was Altered States.
Oh, yes.
With, what is his name?
Well, that's a Ken Russell movie.
William Hurt. It was a very good film. I would see that with my dad, and I was freaked out by that film.
That movie will freak you out.
Another great film from 1980 that I think you saw it was The Final Countdown.
With Kirk Douglas.
Martin Sheen. I can't remember who else is in it. I just remember those two. And I think that's a great film, man.
Yeah.
A modern aircraft carrier with full arsenal ends up going through a rift and ends up on during the Battle of Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, it's a really cool premise. If you had the weaponry to be able to basically stop Pearl Harbor and pretty much win the war before it ever began, would you?
And of course, the irony of the story is that everything that they do just helped everything happen the way it was supposed to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And they find out that they were secretly and quietly part of what happened. And it's it's not a sad ending, but it's a somber ending. I like the film a lot. Somewhere in Time is another film that deals with time travel with Christopher Reeve, who also did Superman 2 that year, but he had already shot Somewhere in Time, which you pointed out. Who was the writer?
Richard Matheson, which, kids, if you do not know that name, Google Richard Matheson, because he not only worked on the real Star Trek, but he's one of the...
So that's it for our 80s wrap-up. That's 1980. Our next episode, of course, will be 1981. I wonder what movies came out then. I guess we'll have to look it up and find out. And with that, that is Keith Moncrief.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Gerry Cassell.
Baby Yoda. Baby Yoda. Baby Yoda. And this is Pop Culture Minefield. And we're out of here. Get up on.
Hey guys, thanks for watching Pop Culture Minefield. If you've enjoyed the show, please remember to like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell icon. Remember, you can find us at Pop Culture Minefield on both Facebook and Instagram. Thank you again.
y'all go.